At least 30 people have died in the inter-community conflict between the Arab Shuas and the Mousgoums in the Logon and Shari division in the far north. We hear equally that over 30,000 Cameroonians are seeking refuge in Chad, in neighboring Chad, as they are running away from the conflict between the Arab Shuas, who of course are cattle breeders, and the Mousgoums, who are fishermen and farmers. How to understand this inter-community conflict between the Arab Shuas and the Mousgoums? What are the reasons? Equally, during this program, we shall be discussing the kidnapping and asking for ransom of a phone, the phone of Bambalan. Bambalan was kidnapped some days ago. They call him phone Yakum Kevin. He was kidnapped, and the kidnappers are asking for 20 million francs CFA for his release. Is it not a taboo to kidnap your phone and ask for ransom? What is happening with the Anglophone crisis? Has the Anglophone crisis turned to killings and kidnappings? Is that the way forward or the solution to the Anglophone problem? And then equally, this week, the National Anti-Corruption Unit, they call them CONAC, actually organized a press conference asking major men to be eye-openers as to what concerns the fight against the cankerworm, I mean corruption. What is wrong with corruption? It's true that how far have we gone, because we know that some government ministers are today in prison and other personalities because of the embezzlement of public funds. Can we be happy with the progress made so far? As usual in the program, the Republican debate, we have men of substance, men of timber, and men of caliber. Without any waste of time, I will begin with the presentation. They call him Okieho Pokier. He is of the DDR Center in Boya. He has come all the way from Boya to take part in this program. He is equally a sympathizer of the CPDM party. Okay, we say good evening and welcome to the Republican debate.
I want to greet you, Mr. Clarkson, and I want to greet all our listeners in Guti. You'll be surprised that we have many listeners in Guti who follow this program seriously.
In Guti?
In Guti.
Oh, that's good.
Them, especially if you love, they follow this program seriously in Guti. I was very surprised when I went to Guti. I realized that they watch this program, they watch Camdist.
Oh,
and I was very happy.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to know that we are being watched at the level of Guti. Guti, of course, we are in the southwest region of Cameroon. Equally sitting with us here on the panel, they call him Atabon Cornelius. He used to be of the PAP party. He has crossed a carpet. He is now in the UCPP party. He is the vice president of that party. Mr. President, we say good evening and welcome to the Republican debate.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Good evening to the millions of televiewers and lovers of Camdish. Just to cue in the same light as my fellow panelists, I equally want to extend warm greetings to the BLM. Unfortunately, it's a long forgotten part of Cameroon, and the thousands of my own people who are now living within the bushes there because of the crisis that has eaten deep into their homes. Most of their homes burned. We hope that someone somewhere will remember them. I equally want to greet the national president of UCPP party, Mr. Chair Moaruland, and hopefully we are here to contribute. We are here to enshrine that we move Cameroon to what it's supposed to be.
You have crossed the carpet.
It's not an issue of crossing the carpet, Mr. Tabi Clarkson. Let me reiterate and remind most of us that one thing that has killed our country is the inability for people to look for opportunities that can better the living conditions of our people. If CPDM has failed and is failing, is because people have stopped their mind and their heart in the same party just because they want to eat. If I realize that I have a brother who can assist us to give food to our people, it is better to get it when it is early than never. Talking about crossing the carpet, that's not very important. What we want here is the fact that we have an opportunity to save lives. We have an opportunity to contribute positively for the growth of our nation. We have an opportunity so that Cameroon remains as one, but the change should be spontaneous.
So that the president of the UCPP party, of course, the vice president is here. It means that the president is here. And I want to believe that crossing the carpet from PAP to the UCPP party is certainly a message that Tabon Cornelius is actually sending to the militants and sympathizers of the PAP. Equally with us here in studio, they call him Alphonse Osamzok. Alphonse Osamzok is a political scientist. He has come. It has been a while that we have not have that opportunity to be with Alphonse. Alphonse, we say good evening and welcome again to the Republican debate.
Good evening, Mr. Tavi Clarkson. It is a privilege for me to be here after a long time. I'm very happy to see you, to see Mr. Tabong, Dr. Ngo, and everybody who are here. I also greet all the televiewers of Camdis television. I think that through this new opportunity, we will analyze social facts and political facts, and also give strategies and solutions that will enable to improve life of Cameroonians and to improve things in our nation, so that social cohesion and peace should be reigning everywhere in our nation.
Once again, we say thank you. Equally on the panel with us is, of course, a Seseko, and he is really dressed like a Seseko. Today they call him Seseko Joseph Eyong Tan, doctor. He said doctor. Equally is a Seseko. At times we don't even know how to present him again. He's here with us, and of course we shall be presenting him when he comes here, because he's already around the corner. The time for us to have this jingle before we come back. The Seseko is here with us. Seseko, Dr. Eyong Ta, we say good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Tabi. Greetings to all the ECPE members in Yaoundé, and special greetings to the family of late Seseko, Dr. Tabeta, whose life we are celebrating this evening. And as you see me dressed, is because I'm on my way to the ceremonial ground, and we want to exhibit the caliber of person he was, and we thank God that things are going well. I want to greet the other panelists, especially our brother who just recovered from health. I think when you look at him, we thank God. He's still looking strong as he used to be. Welcome back, brother. We thank God for your health. And we want to greet our brothers and sisters out there, to know that we are just here to contribute in our own little way for a better Cameroon, and the focus should not be on people's opinion. It should be on what the people are saying and the intention of making Cameroon a better place to be. We cannot have a unanimous decision here, but the intention is for a better Cameroon, and that is what we think people out there should be looking up to.
The intention is for a better Cameroon. So that you are just coming back from the southwest. How is the southwest?
Well, I think the Southwest is just there. It is an environment of high uncertainty. You remember I went to the Southwest to stay for 3 days. I ended up making 9 days because the roads were blocked from where I was in my division precisely. And the roads were blocked between Kumba to Manfe, Manfe to Ekok, and from Bachua to Bamenda. And so I had to stay longer than I had planned. But all the same, it gave me an opportunity to talk to a number of actors in the field, both the armed civilians and the military people that I saw on the field, especially the brigade commander of Tinto, whom I'm sending special greetings because of his high degree of understanding. And I also want to appreciate the maybe you look contradictory, the armed civilians who are there, because they listen to you when you talk sometimes. I just hope that with the continuous talking, they may have a point of convergence where we may have to do the breakthrough. But I must tell you that it is a lot of uncertainty. When people get up in the morning, they first have to look through the windows and see if people are passing before they open their doors. When people are outside and it is getting dark, the first thing that they do is to call and ask if where they come from is in safety before they can make a move. If you want to move from one region to another, like when I wanted to leave the village, I first asked Kumba if cars were leaving Manfe to Kumba before I could leave. And when I got to Kumba, I asked if they stretch from Kumba. You have to be very careful. And so I think the watchword here is that people have to be very careful, because the security is first personal before we ask the state and other persons to come into it. We have to be cautious.
It's true that there is a lot of uncertainty in the southwest and of course in the northwest regions, and now the far north with the Arab Shores and the Mousgoums. But before that, can we have this report coming from the National Assembly, where, not the National Assembly, rather the Governors' Conference, where governors are actually meeting to discuss security, to discuss ESMAS, and to discuss the upcoming AFCON 2021. Can we have the report on the governors?
From north to south, from east to west, all the 10 regional governors have one thing in mind, that of safeguarding the lives of the people and their goods during Christmas, New Year festivities, and the African Cup of Nations.
The West region is faring well. We are preparing for the end of year festivities, as well as the African Cup of Nations. This is the first time that the West region will be involved, so we are so enthusiastic about it, and we are so mobilized to ensure that everything goes on hitch-free. The particularity with the West region is that it's not only the regional headquarters that is involved, but equally the entire region. So it is the entire region that is involved. And we need to know that the West region is a touristic destination. So the chiefs and everybody is mobilized to make sure that everything goes on well.
We are preparing for the AFCON, even if we are not directly concerned. We are not far from Bafoussam, where some team are going to play. Reason why we have taken necessary measures to prevent any security incident coming from us to disrupt the competition in Bafoussam.
We are preparing well. Everybody has to feel at ease at Douala, and we can say that those strategies are not common to people. We cannot say in a video what are we pretending to do, but we have already taken measures at that level. All the stations are secured, all the roads, the main roads are secured.
In the far north, the community conflict between the Arab Shores and the Mousgoums is of concern, but things are gradually coming back to normalcy.
Security situation is back to normalcy. You know, Garwa is one of the towns who have been chosen to host. So we have neighboring countries, Sudan, Chad, Mauritania, and Nigeria, who will pass through Fano region to go to Garwa.
The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, did not fail to remind all those who have intentions to disrupt the AFCON that they will have to face the iron rod of justice.
And we have talked of Cameroonians being ambassadors. Ambassadors meaning that we have to give the best image possible for our country during the CAN. So I think that the governors know exactly what is at stake. We have to fight. We have other security challenges in the regions, northwest, southwest, far north, east region. But I think that globally the security situation is under control. We have told politicians that Cameroonians want a peaceful CAN and that they don't want disturbances, and that during the CAN, politicians should be reasonable. One politician said that he would fight and fight because he wants the electoral code should be amended, and I said no. If you want to fight, you need to have parliamentarians, you need to have senators, you need to have mayors. If you don't have that representation, then you are not a politician who has anything to sell. But I said that we are prepared. We must respect public order.
The two-day governors' conference meeting will end on Friday.
Yes, we just followed that report on the governors' conference. Anything to say? You followed Minister Paul Atanganji saying that if a politician wants to disrupt the AFCON, then he should wait a bit, because AFCON is a big moment that Cameroonians have been waiting for.
Yes, it's true. Right now, you know, we are faced with a predicament. It will not be nice for anybody to throw kerosene in the fire. We know what has happened with the Limbe. We know many things happen in Cameroon. So I want to advise that no politician or no individual should try and disrupt this our can. As the minister said, that we shall implement draconian measures to make sure that any attempt to disrupt the can is quenched. I mean that we shall go with all our arsenals to quench any opposition to the can, or anybody want to use a can to score political goals. Cameroon is a Republican state, and we respect Republican values. We shall not accept anybody want to use a can to score political goals. That I agree with the minister.
It's true that you are coming from Boya. How is Boya?
Boya is fine. Boya is calm. Boya is calm. Everything is moving smoothly, except for Mondays. But as Suku said, the town is filled with uncertainty. But you have to take measures to make sure that you are first of all protected. But the things are going normal. Things are going normal.
Atagon, any comments on what the governors are saying?
Well, I just want to add, I think their meeting is important, but coming up late, you know, like Cameroonians, they always want to do things or set the pace at the nick of time. It is good, but I think it is somehow late, because the Minat boss was supposed to have had this meeting severally to ensure that things are calm and everything. I mean, there is actual normalcy. Reason why you see there is some panicking within the circle. They feel threatened that, as he puts it, some politicians may want to use it to settle their problems. But we are all joining our voices to think that CAN is what Cameroon wants to use to show off itself in the world, and I equally want to believe that we shouldn't use it as an opportunity to settle scores, whatever the scores may be. Let us go in for CAN. Probably, one may never know, we may have an opportunity to come out and return and then have a way to resolve our crisis. So that's what I can say for now.
Maybe the AFCON can be an opportunity to equally, in quotes, maybe solve the Anglophone problem. Alfonso Samson?
Yes, Mr.
The governors?
Yes.
Taganji just spoke a while ago. I saw you were actually laughing here. Certainly something to say about that?
Yes, I have something to say. I heard the minister, Mr. Paul Atanganji. I think that the meeting that he held with the governor is very important, because now that Cameroon is about to organize the African Nation Cup, security has to be reinforced. It is a big opportunity for us to organize this kind of footballistic events in our nations after many decades. It is an opportunity for all to show to the whole world, to show to all other African countries that will be present in Cameroon, and to the whole world that Cameroon is a land of hospitality. And that hospitality can always be shown if there is security. If strangers that will be among us should not be harmed. This is why it is very important. Atanganji is right, and I think that each governor has heard the motivation of the minister, Mr. Atanganji, and I think that all of them will mobilize all the elements that they have at their disposal to impose security in all the regions of Cameroon, so that during the African Nations Cup, political leaders should be nationalist and patriotic, so that they should not be organizing events that will bring trouble and shame on our nation. It is our responsibility, and it is also the responsibilities of all the political leaders of our nations to make sure that a good image of Cameroon is given to all the strangers who will come to that great celebrations of African Nation Cup.
It's true that for the last time we organized the AFCON, it was in 72 to 2021, 2022. It will be 49 or even 50 years after. So it's a big moment that Cameroonians are actually waiting. Seseko, you followed Paul Atanganji and the governors. Can we say that there is serenity?
Well, you know, sometimes I get confused with the positions of our administrators. You cannot, this is not the first time the governors are holding a meeting. It's a routine. What is embarrassing is for all of them to be granting interview and focusing on the African Nations Cup. They have always held these meetings, and the measure point is to try to beef up security following the end of year festivities. Notably the Christmas, the New Year, and the fact that during this period there is a lot of dubious people here and there who do things. They should be focused on that. The AFCON should come as a second aspect. The AFCON is just a matter of 1 month and it is gone. But you see, everything is like focused on that, even though that is not the only thing they discussed. But I feel a little bit disappointed that they have left the whole Cameroon as a problem pot to want to focus on the AFCON. It poses a problem. You know, these meetings, as I have said, they are very timely. It is not late to me. The only problem is that there would have been other meetings, not necessarily by Minad, that would have been a pull factor. Take, for example, there would have been nothing wrong for a political meeting to be held with all political leaders and the civil society groups to present the seriousness of the end of year, what Cameroon is going through, with the intention of beefing the way for a better 2022. You know, it is like, it's a normal business because they have the police, gendarmes, and the soldiers, so they can come and talk big and impose threats on people. No. If people want to defy that, they will still defy it because there are people who have already decided that they are sacrificial lamb. We don't encourage people to go to that extent because it is not worth the trouble. You know, when they are talking about the Nations Cup, which is a good thing, I expected them to say that as they are leaving that place, they have already given instructions for the Nations Cup publicity to take a higher turn. I drove from Central Town to here. I did not see anything on the road telling us that the Nations Cup is coming up 1 month to the event.
Communication is slow.
It's not just slow, it's absent. To be slow is, yeah, because I expected that even in the rural areas, the councils, they would have given them some money by now to put banners up, indicating that that is what is happening. I expected the medias, like your own here, to have issues inside here provided by the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education and so on. I expected a special channel to have been created already by now that is showcasing the touristic riches of Cameroon and what Cameroonians represent. I expected debates sponsored by the state to be going on now to preach the hospitality of Cameroonians because they are very hospitable. We can assure all those that will come to Cameroon that no matter where they will go to, they will feel the warmth of Cameroonians because they are warm people. And so, to me, they should not always try to politicize everything. You know, Professor Kamto, which is the one they are talking about, his party has 14%, whatever. They don't have municipal councillors as they are claiming or as they are saying, which is right. Therefore, they should not be a threat. They should be talking to Cameroonians, not to succumb to pressures of people wanting to manipulate them in something that is not worthy, instead of focusing on one person that they keep giving him publicity all the time. You know, the other time they gave him a hilarious presidential outing from Littoral. Now they are using him on the national media and international media to talk about his threat to the government. I think sometimes they should be very...
so they are doing publicity, cheap publicity.
A lot of it. And I think where he's sitting now, he should be laughing and say, I know how to tickle them, you know. So sometimes you should ignore some of those political statements that are aimed at making people to talk, knowing fully well that they will not yield results. So come to know that he cannot dissolve the Nations Cup. He knows. Because if you tell Cameroonians to go out to dissolve the Nations Cup, they will not go out.
Okay, can we have our first topic on the screen? We are talking the Arab Shores and the Mousgoums, reasons for an inter-community conflict. Have you been following what is happening in the far north?
Yes, fortunately I've lived with the people. I know their culture. I understand the conflict very well. You know, if time permits, I would like to go to the genesis of this conflict.
Yeah.
It started with the jihad. When Modibo Adama came to Cameroon to launch the jihad, most of the Arab Shwas, they joined his jihad so he can dominate over the other tribes. So now when Cameroon became a Republican state, these Arab Shwas, since most of their cattle rears, they are always looking to dominate the others because they move with the head of cattle and they don't have a permanent settlement. So the Mousgoums and the Massa people and the Kotoko people, they are mostly farmers. So due to the climate change, during the rainy season, the Mousgoums and the Massa people, they dig large artificial pools so they can keep fish there during the dry season and they can reserve water that they can use for agriculture during the dry season. So this has been a threat to the Arab Shwas, which at times their cattle, if you have gone up there, some of the topography, they are steep. So at times the cows might slip from the steep slope and fall into some of these artificial points. And it happened when the present one happened when one head farmers went to a point to give water to the cattle, and about 20 of his cattle drowned in an artificial point. And the Arab Shwas demanded that, they came back and demanded that the Mousgoums should fill that point, because that point is like a trap for their cattle, which the Mousgoum people refuse. So a battle started between the two in Misika. Then now it degenerated into a tribal conflict. But I want to tell you that it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with ethnic groups, but it's just that two groups of people are fighting for land. Who will use the land? Who will use the land? It's true that we have already more than 30 people who have died. It's serious. Yes, more than 30 people died, more than 70 people are wounded. And remember that it went up to 42 because the Mousgoum people who went to carry the corpse of their friends who were killed, some were also killed by the Arab Shwas, because the Arab Shwas thought that they were coming out for revenge. So it has gone up to 42, and many fled to Chad. But thanks to the effort of the government, many are returning. For now, about 12,000 people have returned to their homeland. And I want to take note that I want you to understand that it's in that very area that on the 12th of July, that 22 Cameroon soldiers lost their life. So if CAM does not return to that area, it's very dangerous. Can we say that it's very difficult for the government to bring peace? It's very difficult because the people are so close to their culture. Many at times they have tried that they should do like an enclosure. Like if you go to Adamawa, the people there, they carry what they call enclosed cattle rearing. They put like they try to bring water to where the cattle are. But if you go up far north, the people say take the cattle where water is. So that's a difference. So I think it's education that the people should try to provide water to their cattle rather than bring their cattle to that point. That is very dangerous, because the problem is that they see those artificial points as a trap for their cattle. So I prefer that they shouldn't bring water to their cattle. Atabong, you have been following this news coming from the far north, the Arab Shwas and the Mousgoums. What is your take on that?
Well, I want us to understand that these Arab Shwas somehow practice this nomadic, somehow modernized nomadic system, where they prefer to move with their cattle in search for food and pasture and water. And we understand that the world is evolving. This system of life is gradually coming out, and they want to remain in it. And we understand that the population is growing, and land is becoming a problem. It's becoming shortage. So if the government doesn't step in to solve this problem once and for all, it will continue to repeat. Because this is a traditional system, this is a traditional kind of life they live. They live on rearing animals. And the Mousgoum who are actually into farming, we can say that this problem between cattle railers and farmers is all over the world. We know about this in Boom. We have it. I mean, and then coupled with the fact that the northern part of Cameroon is barren, the land is not that fertile. Most farmers there are into cattle railing, and it is absurd to understand that we are still in the era of nomadism, moving with cattle in search of water and pasture. So I think if the government doesn't step in, unfortunately our government is very
What do you think the government can do here?
The government needs to step in to first and foremost probably come out with specific land for these two tribes where they actually have their own land, where they can manage it in either raising their cattle or keeping their fishes and doing their farming. That should be done. If that is not done, there will continuously be spillover. Because take for example, coupled with the fact that the northern part of Cameroon is a semi-desertic land, and during the dry season there's actually no pasture, they'll be tempted to move over in search of food for their cattle, and they will not want to sit and watch their cattle die. So they will constantly go to where there is water in order to satisfy their cattle. But if the government probably comes in and equally maybe bring in some funding, the people should be trained on modern method on how to keep cattle, and maybe the NGOs should see how to bring them out of this, maybe the culture that they are so attached to. We have farmers, cattle railers who have a little piece of land and they are surviving. They could even get into cultivating pasture on that piece of land and using modern method to feed their cattle. I think the government needs to do something to bring to an end to this one once and for all. If not, in the days ahead, there will still going to be a lot of killing.
Apostle Samzok?
Yes, I'm aware of that thing that is happening, that conflict which is happening in far north among Mousgoums and Arab Shua. For me, the cause is a social fact which finds its roots in the consequences of climate change. When we speak about climate change, is because the far north region is in the part of Cameroon that we call the Sahelian zone of Cameroon, which is located in Lake Chad Basin. And we know that Lake Chad has lost 19% of his water surface. And all the people of this area, all the people of this region depends of that water. The people that lives there have three kind of activities. There are fishermen, there are shepherds, and there are farmers. Farmers, fishermen, and shepherds, all of them depends of water, because those who have flocks, they need green pastures to feed their animals. Those who are fishermen need that water to collect their fish, and those who are farmers also need that water to water their crops, to irrigate and water their crops. Now that water is scarce. The scarcity of that water in the Sahelian zone of Cameroon or in the neighborhood of Lake Chad is a source of conflict. There is a link between climate change consequences and peace. Why? Because for shepherds have to move from places where there is no water to places where there is water so that their flocks should drink water. Now, fishermen also have to move to search for water in order to continue with their activities. Farmers also have to look for water in order to continue with their activities. If there is the problem of scarcity of water, it means, and all these three categories of people find themselves in the same place where there is not enough water, a conflict is inevitable. The conflict will happen. What the government has to do now is, first of all, to try to calm the tension between Arab Shua and the Mousgoums and look for sustainable solution, and define new strategies of the management of natural resources of these localities in order to avoid future conflict amongst the tribes and the ethnic which are living in that place. And this is through the restoration of degraded ecosystem. This is the first thing that has to be done. We need to combat desertification. Instead to do Operation Sahel Vert and 3 years or 5 years when we arrive there, no tree. This is one of the consequences. If there were trees there, it would have solved a problem, perhaps partially. Things has to be done. Those things be start with sustainable solution, and now the government who organize everything will look for administrative ways to bring.
So government has to come in. It's important for government to come in.
They have to come in.
Yeah, to actually solve this issue between the Arab Shuas and the Mousgoums. Seseko, you too, you have been following up this news from the far north. What is your take on that?
Well, I think the first thing is that when lives are lost in tragic situations like that in a country which is really struggling to come back to its feet, it's very disturbing, especially knowing that most of those who died are young people who definitely had other major responsibilities as household heads and whatever it is. It's very painful. But coming from an area where death through those ways have become a normal way of life, it's a little bit not surprising, but it's disturbing. You know, actually, I will not go back into the historical aspect, which others have already talked so much. I would prefer to focus more on the way forward, the sustainable elements, as Mr. Alphonse rightly emphasized on. The whole problem there is about bad governance. All what they have said here, if you look at it well, it means that there is a problem of governance where development had not been done the way it is supposed to be done. You know, all those problems started when the name of modern governance came into place and they disrupted the traditional system and setup. Because if you look at what is happening there, it is an ethnic conflict. It is an inter-ethnic conflict. The Mousgoums are an ethnic group. The Arab Shua is an ethnic group. The Maasai is an ethnic group. So they have traditional leaders that they believe in, because these are people who are very attached to their culture. And if you look at it very well, you will see that by the time each of those groups went to act, they did not think of consulting their traditional leaders. Because by the time you go into an armed conflict, because I saw heavy artillery being used in the process, by the time a group decides to do that, in a normal African setup, they are supposed to have a go-ahead or a blessing from the traditional rulers for an ethnic group to get up to go and attack another one. I didn't see that happen. So to me, there is a problem with the traditional leadership of these people. Either it has been weakened or it is no longer respected.
Weakened by bad governance?
Yes, everything is about governance. The world is all about governance. When there is bad leadership, when there is bad governance, everything goes bad. It is just a normal thing. So it's about governance. Now, when you look at it also, you will see that there seem not to be effective administrative presence in that area. Because though there will be, Logon Beni is a subdivision, it has definitely a police post and so on. You will notice that because of the high rate of insecurity in that area, the number of security services or forces that are present there seem to have been overpowered. Because at one point I saw a few of them there, but they could not help the situation. So it means that somewhere along the line, that frontier, because it's a frontier area, we must say, that frontier area has a little problem of imposing state security, where they would have known that with immediate any outburst, there will be intervention. When you also look at it, you heard what the governor said when the thing just happened. He showed already signs of the fact that there is already serious security problems in that area, which is a problem of how they could manage that. I will also end again with the issue of development. You understand that all these things are happening because Cameroon has not yet tailored a good development strategy where places are underdeveloped. Take, for example, that area is a semi-arid area. Therefore, irrigation projects are supposed to be in that area. There are two main rivers that pass through that area to go to drain into Lake Chad. The River Logon and the River Shari. In addition to the Lake Chad that is already having problems. The government can insist and create irrigation projects from the River Logon and the River Shari that can channel water into those areas and be able to make the area livable. In another context, again, as they have said here, there can be a possibility of doing an integrated living situation there as it is done in areas in the Northwest. There are success stories in the Northwest region where cattle rearers and the agriculturalists work in partnership. What do? When the farmers harvest their crops, they bring the cattle there to come and feed on the remnants, and then in the process they defecate, and that helps to fertilize the soil. And then after that, they take the cattle back to another area, the farmers carry out the activity, and there is this intermixture within the two areas. And water points are specifically created, as those ones that have been created, they have been created by those people without the participation of the cattle rearers. If they want to dig those, we can call them ponds, or maybe temporal potholes, they will do it in partnership with the caterers.
So globally, they have to collaborate.
They have to collaborate. There is no way out. When they do collaborate, they will know that potholes are supposed to be dug in the eastern part of our territory, which will be aimed for this. Caterers will be conscious of it, and they will know that if they are going to that area, they will be the ones who would have taken any risk to go to that area. So there must be partnership, because whether we like it or not, those three are bound to live together. They are bound to live. None of the group is going to leave that area, and they need to start thinking of the way, because to me, though the governor said normalcy is returning, they need to heal the wounds. They need to look into the psychological aspect of that, because it's going to still continue. They
are bound to live together. Dr. Eyong just said that bad governance is the raison d'etre of what is happening in the Far North. Do you agree? Okay.
I said it last time that one day somebody will blame the government because it's able to take care of their wife. It seems in Cameroon we blame the government for everything. I know that our government has a problem. That one we all acknowledge it. But if you look at that situation, it's very complicated. You have a group of people who are very close and who are not willing to let go their ancient way of living. I mean, ancient way of living. I'm very serious. If you go there, you realize it. That some of the money houses were even built for them to live there, they refuse. So it's very difficult, because that area, when we spoke to the SDU, when the shooting started, people thought it was Boko Haram. Because I said that 22 Cameroon soldiers lost their life in that very place in July. So when the shooting started, many people thought that it was Boko Haram, because it has never gone to this height. It has just been small queries, small fighting, but it has never gone to this level. And it was impossible for the security forces to intervene just like that. If not, there will be casualties. Because when you hear shooting of that magnitude, you think that it's Boko Haram that is attacking. So I want to say that he rightly said something that the people need to collaborate. But this problem has been going on for long, for this thing. And the problem is dominance. Who should listen to the other? They
have to collaborate.
They have to collaborate. And they have to work together. So this is where the problem is not bad governance. The problem is that they should, who should succumb to the other, who should listen to the other. That's a simple issue.
But can authorities don't come in to say
it's very political, because most at times when the governor goes there and try to say that you listen to this person, they say the governor is political, he's supporting this person, and they will leave the place and reject anything that, because as I said that the Shuas Arab were advised to, as Iran said, to bring water to their cattle ranch. They refused. Then why should they do that? That river is their river. So it becomes very complicated. The problem is dominance, who dominates the others and who imposes on the others. It's a strong, long conflict that started since when Osman Danfodio sent Modibo Adama to northern Cameroon, who should dominate the other. And I want to call on us that they have one paramount leader. It's just like when you go up north there, most of them, they have their sub-chief, they have one paramount leader that they look as a Lamidat, as a Lamido. So I want to call that. It might be this issue. It goes on in Senegal, it goes on in Chad, it goes on in Nigeria, in Sudan, in all the other countries. So the issue there, as you rightly said, that is one of the effects of climate change. And to the best of my knowledge, a group of people are refusing to accept modernity. I've been an eyewitness where there were proposed solutions, but they vehemently refused.
You are talking of dominance. Each group wants to dominate
the other.
The other. Atabong, we are concluding on this. If you were to ask a question, to give an advice, what would you say?
Yes, before maybe I get to the advice, I want to contradict with my the part there. When you talk about the type of ammunitions that we're using, I equally do understand that ammunitions in Cameroon are controlled by certain law. How did they purchase these ammunitions until they were using it anyhow? Secondly, you made known to us here that the military or the men in uniform had nothing to do. Are you trying to tell us now that the Arab Shuas and the Mousgoums are above the government?
Not like that.
Now, look at what is happening to the northwest and the southwest. They are being crushed. Excuse me. Excuse me. They are being crushed. Excuse me. It is very close to it. They are being crushed. Excuse me. These people down here are being crushed to nothing. And you are trying to protect the same attitude far north. Means the government is accepting inability to manage its own people.
No.
Which is a shame. Excuse me. You have spoken. I'm judging your word. The government now is accepting the inability to manage people, because if you say that the kind of guns they were shooting, the kind of ammunition they were shooting, and the people in Europe could not say anything, what have they not done? Why have they not done the same thing in the north and south?
I'm not saying so.
You just said that. Now let me remind you that with the development pattern in Cameroon, it is unheard of that a portion of the country as such, which you rightly said, they have been in crisis and are unable to solve it. It just came up and we are proposing ways by which we can resolve the problem. And we are still talking of people being attached to their culture in the 21st century, where we have people, I mean the governor is there, even the traditional leader, all alleged to the government, are not being done. Let me tell you, climate change is not limited to the northern part of Cameroon. It is in Cameroon, it's in Africa, and it is in the world. And the world is battling to resolve it. I do understand that it is the same crisis. Climate change is not an issue of Cameroon. I understand that the Muslims have this attitude. But what
it's not a Muslim, forget it's not a Muslim.
Please,
Arab.
I want us to, we'll talk about, I mean, culturally wise, culturally wise. You will not have that between us. I mean,
it happened in Bamenda last time.
But there were people who had the whole origin. They are all their origin.
You have to ignore that. It happened in Northwest.
In whom, let me remind you, in whom the cattle raiders, they owe allegiance to that culture. This very culture, which is very much related to the Muslims. Don't forget about their way of life. And that's what I'm saying. And the fight was between them, the cattle raiders, and the farmers. So
Atabo, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that, just as Soko said, the government has failed in its development plan. The government has failed to regard the pattern of development which the world is taking, the evolvement. The government has failed to realize that there are certain cultures that need to be emancipated, which is a problem. This is the same thing that has happened in the northwest and southwest, because they have refused to develop this area. The people think that they are of their own. Now we are talking about the north, I mean the far north. Can the government not supply them those water points? Must it be themselves?
It's done.
Has the government gone and created water points and have refused to use? And you want to tell me that the government was able to put a point in the northwest and southwest to the nobody can go out because of the guns, but up there the government has resigned. I'm disappointed.
Okay, we have got you, Atabong Cornelius. Yes, Osamzo, yes. What is the way forward? How to solve this issue?
The way forward, the first thing is that we need the presence of members of government there in order to observe, analyze what's happened. Now, when they observe, analyze what happened, when they listen to all the groups, they will have at their hands all the elements that will enable them to find the right judgment. This is the first thing. The second thing is that the government has to do a work of socialization with all these people who are there. When we look at Arab shores, their way of living, be it in Chad, be it in Mundu, be it in Sudan, they have the habit of enslaving those who are black. They have that habit. It must be said clearly. This is what he was saying, but diplomatically saying dominance, dominance, dominance. The Arab shores have the habit of enslaving the others. And this is what Mousgoums and Massa are refusing. Massa and Mousgoums are opposing a resistance. It should be clear. Arab shores are not supposed to dictate their way of living to the others. They are not supposed to show to Mousgoums what to do and what not to do. No, this is not how people are supposed to live in a community. They live in the same communities and they have to manage the same natural resources. I think now the government has to help them in order to define how to use the natural resources.
So the government has to come in
that
to say, no, you should not dominate.
For example, if there is a river here, if you if Atabong said that all the river belongs to him, Alphonse is not supposed to use a part of the river. It is the problem. The government has to intervene. The government has to intervene and to show them
so we can say it's bad governance.
Yes, there is a problem of bad governance. We cannot deny that there is a problem of bad governance. Because there are many questions to be asked during that conflict. Where were the member of government? Where were the SDO?
The governor.
The governor. The DO. The policemen. The mayor.
Where were the traditional rulers?
Where were the traditional rulers? Where were the religious rulers? What happened? How did we go so far that 42 people died before the World War were away? These are the questions.
Until they crossed to Kuseri.
Until they crossed to Kuseri. Thousands of people. There is a problem.
There is a problem that needs a solution, Seseko?
Yes, I would just want to add, you know, I always insist on bad governance as a problem of Cameroon. And even though my brother Chief Okia is trying to refuse that fact, the problem of Cameroon is all about governance. If we straighten the governance problem in Cameroon, many things will be solved. And when we talk about governance, the government is at the top, not that it's the government alone. You heard us listing a chain of actors who are stakeholders in governance, because the traditional ruler is part of governance. The council and the mayor are part of the governance. The elected official parliamentarians and so on, they come from that area. So if these people are not doing their job, it means that the system of governance that has been put in place has either not empowered them, has either not educated them, has either not made them to know their role for them to perform it. And if we cry that aspect and make people to take their responsibilities, they may now be in control of their subjects, of their people or those under them, and be able to make them more humanist. Because the whole problem here is that Cameroonians have lost the sense of humanism. It is not a matter of I am more stronger than you. If you joke with me, I'm going to crush you. That is what is happening there. It is the same thing that we are trying to declare here in the other part of the country. That our other brothers who think that they are in the domination, because it is a larger part of Cameroon, want to crush the 20% that is a smaller part. And we say no. We can find a mechanism that we can live together coherently and everybody keeping his or her culture. There is nothing wrong with the Arab Shuas keeping the cattle rearing habit. But it can be modified. And for it to be modified, they need to see best practices that people are doing there and it is working well. For the Mousgoums who are doing agriculture, they need to be given a possibility to see how the agriculture can be done without contradicting cattle rearing. And once those best practices are put into place, that is the role of the government, which is through a chain that goes down. So we just want to say that, as Alphonse said, the emphasis is that government was coming. Government knows what is happening there, but they have been letting it go because of influence. If you want to look at it, this issue is politicized. There are some Arab Shuas who are very prominent and influential in that area. So most often when the administration want to come in, they fear the importance of those people. And so they have to forgo that element of people's strength, individual trying to dictate how they want things to be done. And if the government, through its representative there, decide to impose government power on those people as they have imposed it on other parts of the country, trust me, those guys will have no choice than to succumb. If they cannot succumb to the dictates of the state in that area, they will have no choice than to migrate elsewhere, which they will not do so.
Okay, we still have 1 minute. I'll give you that minute on this first topic. Okay.
Well, I want to call on my brothers in the far north to sit like brothers and try to see how they can live peacefully together. Killing each other, because Mr. Clarkson, I want to call your attention that at first the Shuas Arab were not using the Logo and Shari River, they're using Lake Chad. But due to the problem, as Hilary said about Lake Chad, that's why they moved down to Logan and Shari, and that's where you see there is high level of insecurity there. I want to tell the other panelists that we're not here to blame each other, but the people themselves fighting, they have lived like brothers for centuries. They should look into their eyes and ask themselves questions.
What is happening, and they should look, they should seek for a solution, because in Cameroon we have already many problems with the southwest and the northwest region. We all know what is actually happening with the security. You wanted
I want to add one word.
Yeah.
I want to just to remind ourselves here and our televiewers that the reason why the conflict extended to Kweseri is because at one point, the people at the base realized that they were killing themselves for no reason. That conflict has been influenced by the prominent Arab Shuas who live in the big cities and who own cattle in those rural areas. And the reason why they went and bought the Kweseri market is on the basis that the rich Arab Shuas are those who own the big shops there, and they are the ones who own that cattle.
Yes.
They have caused them to kill themselves at grass level, so they decided to fight back. So that is why we say that at one point there is some over-influence that has been deterring administrative decisions.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, they have to impose it. The government has to impose itself there, and when they impose it, those guys who are trying to think that they are, because don't forget that there has been this problem of little states being formed in the far north region, you know, because of the culture and the other things. So it has to be dismantled. It has to be dismantled.
It has to be dismantled. We are all brothers and sisters, and I think, as Oke said a while ago, they have lived for centuries together, the Arab Shuas and the Mousgoums. It's true that houses have been burned, properties destroyed, people killed. We want to believe as
homeless.
Yes, others have been rendered homeless. We want to believe, as the governor of the far north actually puts it, that things are gradually coming back to normalcy. We are now moving on to our second topic of the day. But before that, can we have the report of Isaac? No, the report of Bertrand Tita on the kidnapping of the phone before we come back.
His Royal Highness Fon Shomitang II, the traditional ruler of Mbao Yako Fondom, who doubles as the president of the Northwest House of Chief, has been kidnapped. The traditional ruler was picked up by separatist fighters on Tuesday, December 7th from his palace in Bambalang, Ngok-Ketunja division of the Northwest region. Separatists who are clamoring for an independent state called Ambazonia in Cameroon's English-speaking regions have been targeting government officials, elites and village chiefs. The move, they say, is to pressurize the government to grant their independent quest. The kidnapped traditional ruler, it should be recalled, heads the Northwest House of Chiefs recently created. It is a body instituted as part of post-national dialogue resolutions owing to special status for the Anglophone regions. It was created by the government after the 2019 major national dialogue. The government and the House of Chiefs is meant to give a voice to traditional rulers said to have been long ignored in key decision-making processes in their regions of origin. Like many other state actors in the light of the armed conflict, however, the decision failed to find favor in separatist eyes. It remains uncertain their demand for the release of the traditional ruler at the moment. Similar traditional rulers have in the past had a similar fate, including the Fon of Nso.
Yes, we are talking the kidnapping of the phone of Bambalang. At Tabon, 20 million francs CFA that the separatists are asking for his release. Kidnapping a phone, is that not a taboo at Tabon?
Yes, Mr. Clarkson, I want to look at this from two aspects. One, it is a taboo, and another aspect, it is not. Yeah, it is not. Why? Just in line like what we have been discussing for what is happening in the far north region of Cameroon, let us ask ourselves, what is the relationship between these leaders and the people under them? What respect do they owe their leaders? And how do they find themselves at the top of leadership? And how do they treat the people under their leadership? This is the reason for all of this. In the time past, it was unheard of that you see even your phone and stand. I want to talk about my own case. When you hear the sound of the for the phone or the chief coming, you have to bow till he passes. What has happened within a few years? That people have the temerity to pick up their phones and knock up and demand also. Do you think it's just because the people, they are just... The first thing is, some of these phones have lost respect in the eyes of their people because of the things they do. I am not talking directly to the fund of Bambalang, but we are looking at it generally. Remember that we are here in the Balkan debate to look at how we can move our country ahead.
The funds are no longer the funds. Why are they no longer respected?
That is what I'm driving at. Some of these funds, they found themselves to the top of leadership through crooked means, which is actually known by their own people. One. Number two, some of these funds have decided to respect the authority of the nation and not represent the people whom they actually represent. This has equally made the people to lose faith in them. Some of these funds have sold land that belongs to the people, frustrated some of the people living in that place, and they see no need respecting them. Let me start from that area. In this case, the people do not see it as a taboo picking up their phone. It's like straying to your house and picking up a neighbor to go and lock up. They have no respect for it. The culture and tradition has fallen standard. Nobody cares about it. The festivals that were made to purify the land are no more there. So they don't see it as a taboo. But in another end, owing to the tradition that we grew to see, it is unheard of that you will kidnap even a normal civilian, talk less of a phone. It is unheard of that people can go and kidnap a phone and are demanding 20 million. The question is, how have they managed the Anglophone crisis? How have they managed the crisis within their specific
You are talking of the funds and the traditional leaders.
The funds and the traditional leaders. How have they managed this crisis? Have they been there to represent the people to which they have the traditional authority to represent, or have they been there as the eyes of the government not to care what happens to them? I think unless these two things are sorted out, these kidnaps are going to continue. But I want to warn that if we actually want peace to return, it is not by kidnapping people, it's not by kidnapping our traditional leaders, it is for us to go to the table.
Kidnapping the traditional leader like the phone is a taboo, okay?
I'm not from the Northwest, I'm from the Southwest, but it's a very big taboo. And I want to call on Southwest, I want to call on Anglophones. I call them Anglophones because I want to give a special message to them. You cannot hit your penis and expect your enemies to feel the pain. Because at the end, all what is done is affecting Anglophones themselves. If you look how other people fought their war of independence, they targeted their opponents. But I'm surprised that we say we are fighting a war for our freedom, but at the same time we are hitting our heads with a nail for our enemies to feel the pain. If the fund of Babalang is killed, it will affect you in no way. Let me give information to Anglophones. It's high times that we keep sympathy aside and bring out empathy. We should be wise. The fund represents a core of the Anglo-Saxon culture we say we are fighting for. Now you are the same people trying to make that same culture disappear. The fund was not elected, and the fund was in his palace. He held meetings with his council of elders to prepare for a festival before this kidnapping happened. He was in his palace. That shows that he was with the people.
Yes.
He was kidnapped from the palace. He was kidnapped on the roadside. The fund of Bambalang is somebody I know very well. He was in the palace discussing with the people and tried to see how they can bring the people together for what festival. You see. The fund of Banso did it only in.
So he was kidnapped in the palace.
In the palace. And I want to say
people
that
no longer have respect for foredoms or chiefdoms.
Since this crisis started, as Sissoko Riley said one time ago, that if you travel down southwest, you meet different people. There are people who have lost respect for elders, but there are people who still have high respect for elders.
Yeah.
Some people, because they hold gun, they don't respect people again. I've met some of these boys on the way. The way we talk is very civilized, but some of them will ask you to kneel down for nothing. So you have to sit down. But some of them, they will talk to you gently. They will ask you their own opinion. So it's a scenario where I want to call on Anglophones that we need to preserve our culture and don't destroy it. You cannot hit your head with a nail and expect the enemy to feel the pain. Mr. Clarkson, I want to make something that very controversial. How many Francophones who are SGOs and GOs in the Anglophones have been kidnapped? Or community commanders or police, high police commissioners who have been kidnapped? None. I want to say it clearly that some people are using us like political guinea pigs.
Political guinea pigs, eh?
Yes. To portray to, it's either the diaspora or here in Yaoundé. They are using us and they are gaining from this, both in the government and both in the diaspora. They have what they call the war of economics. That they have a lot to gain from this.
Well, Siseko, a young time you just followed okay. What is your take? What do you have to say about that? About the kidnapping of a phone? You, as a traditional leader, of course, why are Anglophones or why our people don't longer have respect to phones, chiefs, and so on? Why?
Well, I think it's a simple thing to understand. Most of the traditional rulers have lost their credibility. It's as simple as that. It falls back to the issue of governance. When the British came to when the Germans came to Cameroon, they decided to use the chiefs to govern the people. They decided to use the chiefs to control the people. They decided to empower the chiefs to have some degree of authority as they met, because they already met those people with a lot of powers. The Manga Williams, the Bells, the Aquas, and so on and so forth. The Ashala Tangana and the Galigas and the rest, they already had a lot of control, even the Sultan of Fumba. These are the people that they met, and they had authority over their people, and they could talk and people hear them. They could stand for their people, they could defend their people, and they stood to make a society coherent. What has destroyed our customs and tradition is politics. When they brought politics inside, instead of giving the traditional rulers that neutrality that will enable them to assemble their people, because there is no community, maybe in the south and east, where, no, I think the east already has positions within them, where you can have all belonging to a single party. So it means that within a community, you can have those of party A, B, C. The traditional ruler is supposed to have a way to bring them all together so that he can manage them. There are people there who will have different religions. They will have different beliefs. They will have different and other things that is there. The traditional rulers for quite some time now, for more than 60 years, don't have that control again. It is unheard of that a traditional ruler gets to the assembly under the canopy of a political party, gets to an elective post under the canopy of a political party. When that happens, you think if I'm a traditional ruler and I'm in party A, I will accept party B to come and campaign in my village? I will accept party B to come and win elections in my village? Once that element comes into place, it removes that traditional neutrality. We must say here that traditional rulers are sacred people with an S-A-C-R-E-D. And they carry a lot of ancestral powers. Take, for example, myself. The initiation rites that I went through, which took 7 days for me to come out, 4 out of the 7 days was aimed at my contact with the ancestors. And a number of things were done. A number of instructions were given to us. It is a teaching process. And one of the things that we hold incarnate in us is the aspect of justice. If you attend the meeting today, which you are invited this evening, it's very soon, you will hear what the Kmer is all about and what we'll be discussing there. And you see, when that happens, the traditional ruler is an invisible person. What is happening is that most of our ancestors have run away from the palaces. They have abandoned the palaces. You can't enter the palace, kidnap a phone, and go back safe. It cannot happen.
In the palace?
How did you even enter there in the first place? How did they pass? No matter the arms that they hold, a phone is an invisible person. And trust me, if that phone is who he is supposed to be, those guys within the months ahead are going to go down for it. Trust me, we will come here. If they don't, know that the phone's hands are not clean. If the phone's hands are clean, those guys who dare touched him and succeeded to carry him out of that palace, the ancestors will deal with them very squarely. I want to say it very clearly here that If you look at, for example, the fund of Meza, the fund of Mancon,
Anglophone?
He's in this palace. He's one of the most senior funds in the Northwest region. Look at the way these things are going, look at his position and the way he talks. You will realize that he is for his people, but at the same time, he makes sure that the government position stands, because they are those who are the founders of reunification in this country. If you look at the neighboring areas, you look at the positions of the funds, the way they are talking, you will see the same thing. Go to the southwest, as we are saying. There are still some chiefs who are living in the areas. Even like if you go to Kmer, in Fako, where Kmer in particular, which is a hot zone, the chief of Kmer, of Kumba, is there. Is there. The sons who have come over, they live there. If you go to Manfe Central, the paramount chief of Manu, which is Chief Dr. Oben, he is living in Manfe town. If you come to my area before my chief died, he was living in my village. And there are others there who are doing the same. Why are these other people not a target? So I am still hanging on the issue of governance. We have to revamp our traditional institutions, give them the authority that they have.
But they should forget politics.
They don't need to forget politics. They should just keep politics out of their rim. Meanwhile, it does not stop them from being inner politicians.
Okay.
Because if that is not done, trust me, it is going to continue to cause conflict in those areas, because there are many areas that have been torn apart because of the position of the traditional ruler.
Alphonse?
Yes, Mr. Tabi. Politics or not politics, a phone is not to be touched. A phone is not to be kidnapped. A phone is a taboo. Kidnapping a phone is a taboo. Kidnapping a phone is a forbidden thing. Kidnapping a phone is unlawful. Kidnapping a phone is an abomination. Anthropologically speaking, a phone has been invested with the powers of ancestors. A phone represents the gods of the community in his community, and his role and duties is to install peace and social cohesion in his community. His role is to make sure that there is justice. Now, when guys come and kidnap a phone and ask for ransom, is an abomination. There is no justification. There is no argument that can justify this action. It is unlawful. Biblically speaking, a phone is what we call a chief, or in my African way, what we call a phone is a king. In my African view, a phone of Mancon is a king of Mancon. You are not supposed to say negative thing against the king of your community. If we start, how do you say it? If you start having bad behaviors toward our phones, it means we are fallen in the state of anarchy, disorder, chaos. It means your child also can beat you and do everything
and give an excuse
to you and give an excuse. We cannot tolerate such a thing. It is not lawful and it is not acceptable. If the guys kidnap their phones and ask for 20 million, it is an abomination.
Atabo said a while ago that, of course, it's because these phones, they do politics, they are no longer respected by the people because they do things that they were not doing before.
I don't want to follow his argument. I'm just telling you that at the moment you are seated on the throne and that you have been crowned king or fond, whatever the name, you are a taboo. You are sacked. You are not touchable. What you deserve is honor and respect. And now, you the phone, if the role that has been assigned to you, how you are supposed to lead your community, if you are not working according to this assignment, you will receive the judgment of the gods, if I have to speak as an African, isn't it?
Okay,
or
but why are the phones not respected?
Or you will be chastised by...
Why are the phones not respected today, according to you?
Is this modernity, is this globalization, this mondialization?
Yeah.
Our children spend all their times on TV. They can see how in Europe the child say no to the dad. How can somebody say no because of democracy? I have the right to insult my president day in and day out. Because of democracy, I have my word to say in this family. There is no motive in our families. There is no motive in our communities. I don't like dictatorship. This is foolishness. We are African. We have our traditions and we have our custom. We have to conserve our tradition and our custom. If we disrespect our chief, our fathers, our leaders, our seniors, it is our society which is collapsing. And we don't want this kind of society which become a chaos. Let's go back to respect of authorities.
We have to respect
religious or
we have to respect. Thank you. We have to respect our funds, our traditional customs. Atabon?
Yes, I don't want to go out of that. Respect, it's very true, but it should be mutual. The respect should be mutual. I don't want to believe that if a phone comes to your house because a phone and kills your wife because he has been made a phone, you don't have enough voice, you go and sit down.
No phone can do that.
We are evolving. Let me just come. We are evolving. And it's not only about globalization. People are becoming educated. People know more than they knew in the past. So the phone should not also act arbitrarily because he's sitting on the throne. I am not supporting the fact that a phone should be kidnapped. And bear me you, this kidnapping should not only be about the phone. No one should be kidnapped. It's not because it's a phone that he cannot be kidnapped, the other person should be kidnapped. Kidnapping, it's a crime. Let us put it that way. Even if it's a child or a woman or a man or a phone, it's a crime.
Yeah.
But I want to reiterate that what has so soon happened, that the phones and the chiefs have lost this respect. It's not only about modernism. It's because of the thing they are doing.
What are they doing?
They have entered into partisan politics. They side themselves with parties that are killing, that are people realize that they are benefiting nothing from it.
Why do you not ask questions?
Ask.
You don't ask questions on time.
That is it. Now, what do you? What I want us to understand this.
Don't ask questions on time.
No, excuse me.
Ask.
You excuse me. we sitting here, we know certain forms. I'm talking about my own life. Who went out and called on the population to vote on a particular party? As a form.
You are fun.
I am not talking about, I don't want to get into the intricacies. I'm saying that I know from who goes out and asks people to vote a particular party. And when you don't, and you are known, you are technically silent of certain things in the village. Now, when these things happen, and the people who have been silent, the people who have ostracized from their own villages, and they are seen as an opportunity to remind the fund that the fund that used to be in the past, who had the rights and duties, are not more there. Just to make you understand that you are not more respected. I am not saying that the fund that was kidnapped has done that, but we are looking at it globally, that some of these funds have hurt their people to the extent that they can only pay back. Now, before I remember that these people doing this are youth. And most of these youth are youth who are jobless, who have not given the opportunity to be in the society making something. They are in the villages. Have you seen
if they are jobless, they fall responsible.
And who gave them the idea to kidnap the phone and ask 20 million?
If they are jobless, they
are jobless. Now they have to ask 20 million.
I am not supporting it.
Is a phone responsible?
Excuse me, I'm not supporting the fact of kidnapping. But I want you to understand that are there any youth who left Yaoundé, Douala, Bafoussam, and returned to the village to kidnap their fund? No. There are these frustrated youth in the village who possibly would have been helped in one way or the other. Excuse me. Who have been helped one way or the other, or would have benefited support from this chief and given him even the support. But again, in this case, let us not forget that all of this rotates around politics. It could equally be coming from within the society.
Atabong, are you aware of the fact that this act of kidnapping the phone and asking 20 millions is a deviation for the Anglophone problem now?
I understand, and that's why
that it will twist the vision of the Anglophone problems.
I have not supported the kidnapping.
Are you aware of that fact?
I understand.
Are you aware of the fact that it will bring corruption and pollution in the Anglophone problem?
No, I understand.
Well, my brother, the truth is that the problem has already been truncated. The problem of the Anglophone, not Anglophone crisis, the Southern Cameroon problem has already been truncated. There's no Anglophone problem in Cameroon. There's a Southern Cameroon problem in Cameroon that must be solved and will be solved. Now, it has created room for people to set a course.
It's true.
That is why we are insisting here that the traditional rulers have to take their authority. Don't be surprised that some elites who were not in support of the other candidates, who were not in support of the present fund, who could not do anything when things were normal, have now the opportunity to fight back. There are examples like that. Even the case of the fund of Nso, when he came to Yaoundé, his major mission was reconciliation mission, because there was a problem between the elites of that area, which engineered the problem. So this crisis have come to open so many skeletons that were in the cupboard. So most communities, in reality, this is what is happening there. And so sometimes the internal things that happen have got nothing to do with the political problem. It has got to do with people who have seen opportunities. For example, when people take on their elites in the area, there could be elites that they would have been asking them support, they would have been expecting things from them, since they gave the opinion that they could help because they are the leaders of the area, and they did not do it, whereas truly they could not do it. Now those youths think that this is the time for them to tell them that you have been there, what have you done for us? If you notice, those are the type of questions they are asking. So people should not always try to give the possibility that they can do what they cannot do. Because our elites have given the possibility that they are all in the community, they are those who can do things. These guys now, because they have the guns, they are dictating the pace of things, which has got nothing to do with the Southern Cameroon problem. And
nothing
so
to do?
Yes, it has got nothing to do.
Okay.
Because don't be surprised that if you go and ask them why they kidnapped the phone, they will not tell you anything, no link to the political problem of Southern Cameroon. They will tell you some other stories. So that is why I am insisting that if the hands of the phone are clean, guys, trust me, you will see that those guys will be killed in the next battle.
We still have 10 minutes.
But if his hands are dirty, the ancestors have left him.
We still have 10 minutes before we go. Can we have this report, the third report, the report of Isaac on Konak? The reports, please.
As Cameroon joined the international community to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day this Thursday, 9th December 2021, the National Anti-Corruption Commission deemed it necessary to organize a seminar with media professionals in the country.
I think this seminar on improving our ability to bring our own input in the fight against corruption, it's a very worthy initiative. I think this will be reflected on the articles I will do, because my ability to do articles that denounce corruption.
The spur for journalists to carry out investigative journalism in the fight against the cankerworm eating deeply into the Cameroonian social fabric is not an easy ride for media professionals.
As journalists, you get yourself involved in investigating corruption practice. You would find yourself in a trap because you have information you have to publish. And sometimes the information might be true, but not confirmed by an official. So when you release the information, the official concerned, the suspect, can take you to court. They can be pursued. And then Konak is encouraging us to go ahead and do that and do those. So we find ourselves in the middle, and it's a very difficult position.
Participants were schooled on the importance of personal integrity, the respect of ethics and deontology of the profession.
It is for this reason that we carry out a campaign that if it is not yours, don't take, in the course of 2021. The campaign was targets mostly schoolgoers, is intended to instill integrity in them. We hope that with the implication of media, parents and entire education family, our young one will indeed the virtue of honesty, respect, self-dignity, and handwork as they grow up.
Konak intends to intensify the fight in 2022.
The rapid result of initiative approach that targets the elimination of specific form of corruption in some structure will be reinforced, because we have noticed that it was not done last year, and should have this year we have to continue it. We pray that the coronavirus pandemic fully gets under control for outreach activities to regain their bloom, as we also intend to take Konak activity to councils and chiefdoms. Our drive is to make the fight against corruption felt in at the grassroots.
The seminar was punctuated with some keynote presentations questions and answer sessions that left participants hungry for more such seminars as the media resolutely partners with the National Anti-Corruption Commission, CONAC, to kick the cankerworm out of the country.
Yes, we are talking corruption. It's true that we don't have much time again to talk to discuss corruption, but we shall give each panelist a minute to discuss or to say something about corruption. Proud of efforts made so far to combat the phenomenon. I'll begin with you, okay. Do you think that corruption so far, the fight so far so good?
Well, the government has done all it can to fight corruption, but I want to say that their best is not good enough. But we have improved over the years. You know, in the 90s, Cameroon was topping the chart for the most corrupt countries. But at least
they came out champion twice, eh?
Champion twice, but at least today we are no longer champions again. That shows that we have improved. We have improved in fighting corruption, but we have a lot that is still needed to be done so that we can kick out corruption. I want to say that corruption should be fought on both sides. That means us from the base and the government
has been taken need to come back. And then the funniest thing is that those who are fighting corruption are those who are really corrupt. Those that have been given the opportunity to fight corruption are those who master the corruption very well. I think that's the one reason why Cameroon corruption level seems to have dropped. It has not. It's just that those who are fighting corruption are those who master the corruption themselves. And they are able to make it so much so that we don't see it. But corruption has eaten deep into us like a cankerworm, and it's not going to end soon. I only think that the breed of people there should be replaced completely, because there are people who have already been in corruption and have given opportunity to fight corruption when they are corrupt.
What are the mass citizens?
The citizens have no choice. Why? Because unless there's a free and fair or a plain ground for us to compete, corruption will not stop. Don't think that somebody has the opportunity to bribe into ENS and will not bribe when he knows that everyone is bribing.
He will not do it without documents, because
that is what I'm saying, that the government should clean the system from top to bottom so there can be an opportunity.
Clean the system from top and fair to bottom. Alphonse, you are word on this corruption?
I acknowledge the efforts of our government to deal with corruption in Cameroon, but I also acknowledge that there is a lot to do. There is a lot to do. To eradicate corruption in Cameroon, government has to multiply the efforts, and Cameroonian has to be sensitized. And all those who corrupt, all those who are involved in corruption has to be sanctioned seriously. Because this corruption is everywhere in Cameroon, even in the road. Just move from one town to another town. People, that is what you see in the road is corruption. Go in an office, if what you see is corruption. Is there a competition, an exam? What you see is corruption. Corruption is everywhere, everywhere. We cannot become a developed country with corruption. Corruption will just bring us down. It's bringing us down. Corruption is a factor of underdevelopment. We have to eradicate corruption.
Efforts have been made, but much still has to be done.
Exactly.
Seseko, we are concluding with you. A word on corruption?
Well, you know, you cannot ask somebody to buy a cap when it does not have a head. And so it is just a tool of governance in Cameroon. It is a tool of governance. It is deliberate, and the corruption is going to continue till after, maybe in the Third Republic. For this particular republic, it is going to be, it is a tool of governance. You know, they know that the Cameroonians are poor, the system needs to function, and the system has been using the corruption to function throughout, and they are still using it as we speak. So it cannot be eradicated. What they have just done is to create a dog and then they remove his teeth. So the dog barks, but it cannot bite. You know, it is in a situation where when you have soap in your eyes, you cannot argue the price of water. That is what is happening in Cameroon today. The corruption is there, the population is in corruption, they have decided to swim in the corruption, and they are not arguing the price of water. Because if you don't, be rest assured, they say a patient dog eats the fattest bone, you are going to die of hunger. So what is happening here is a tool of governance that the government has chosen to govern and stay in power for as long as they can. Elections are corrupt. Appointments are corrupt. The private sector is corrupt. So it becomes the farmers are corrupt. The recruitments are corrupt. Their media house here is corrupt. On the road, corruption. You go to buy drinks, corruption. So people have soap in their eyes and they have decided not to argue the price of water.
Okay, Seseko, we wish you well as you go out there to celebrate.
Thank you very much. And may the soul of His Royal Highness for Seseko Dr. Tabeta rest in perfect peace.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. And of course, we say thank you, gentlemen, for coming for this another edition of the Republican debate on the Republican television. It's on this note that we put an end to this edition, and we say may God continue to bless the Republic.